So what would Sun Tzu, the legendary Chinese general behind the art of war, think about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, how the Prophet conducted warfare? I know it sounds like an unexpected crossover, but when you dig into it, especially with the help of the wonderful book by Professor Joel Haywood, The Warrior Prophet, you find some really, really surprising overlaps. So Sun Tzu is all about strategy, is all about intelligence, is all about avoiding bloodshed. And believe it or not, so was the Prophet Muhammad. So let's walk through this together and see what we can discover. Let's start with those of you who don't know who Sun Tzu was. Sun Tzu lived some 2,500 years ago, and he wrote or compiled the book, The Art of War or Art of War. The book is not just for soldiers. Art of War is not just for soldiers. It's for anyone who leads or who navigates through tough decisions. Sun Tzu wasn't about brute strength. Sun Tzu was about smart thinking. As a general, he was a great general. But in his view, the greatest general is he who wins without fighting. Okay? He taught that understanding your enemy, choosing the right time, choosing the right place, using diplomacy when possible, these are the marks of real strength. Sun Tzu also believed that war was an absolute last resort, and that if you were to have a war, it should be fast, it should be efficient, and cause the least harm possible, especially to non-combatants. Sun Tzu's focus was on strategy, on discipline, on morale, and avoiding chaos. So who was the Prophet Muhammad in war? Who was this warrior prophet? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, wasn't a general by training. He was a prophet. The Prophet Muhammad was also a teacher. He was also a reformer. After facing years of persecution and exile, the Prophet had to defend his community. And when he did, he brought clear ethics to the battlefield. The Prophet taught his followers not to harm civilians, not to damage property, not to destroy crops or sacred sites or places. Women, children, monks, the elderly, the infirm were to be left unharmed. Even trees and animals were to be spared. Think about that, 1400 years ago, in a time when tribal warfare was brutal. The Prophet imposed strict rules of restraint. And perhaps most famously, after returning to Mecca with a powerful army, the Prophet forgave his enemies. No mass executions, no revenge, but mercy, but justice. The Prophet's leadership was built on forgiveness, not force. We have to understand that. Forgiveness, not force. Now, let's compare. Let's bring Sun Tzu and the Prophet's teachings together. Let's look at 5 areas where the thinking of Sun Tzu and the Prophet Muhammad truly aligns, even though they came from completely different worlds. And I think you'll find it fascinating. Let's look at the word restraint and morality, or words restraint and morality. Sun Tzu said, that's number one, restraint and morality. Sun Tzu said that the best victory is the one where you don't have to fight. And the Prophet Muhammad lived that. He gave enemies a chance to back down. He always looked for peace first. He didn't romanticize war. The Prophet saw it as something heavy, a burden. War was a burden, and war is a burden. Sun Tzu would have seen that as a strength, not as a weakness, because real power is controlling yourself, not just your enemy. The second area we see is war should be a last resort, an absolute last resort. So both Sun Tzu and the Prophet Muhammad believed that war should be the absolute very last option. Okay? The Prophet, when he signed the treaty of Hudaybiyah, it looked like a bad deal, but because mostly it was in favor of the other side, but it still led to peace and a wave of conversions. Sun Tzu would have loved that. He taught that a war avoided is a war won. So why fight when you can outthink your problem? Okay, outthink your enemy. Number three is leadership by example. Now, Sun Tzu said that a good commander is one who earns the respect of his troops. A good commander is one who earns the respect of his troops. The Prophet Muhammad led from the front. He ate what his soldiers ate. He prayed with them. He suffered with them. Believe it or not, when he captured the enemy soldiers, they were also fed the same stuff that his troops were being fed. He didn't play any favorites. He believed in justice being applied to everyone, no matter their status. That kind of leadership doesn't just win battles. It wins hearts and it builds movements. You look at number four is clever strategy. Sun Tzu believed that intelligence was everything. He believed in using surprise, using timing, using terrain, i.e. the land. The Prophet was incredibly strategic as well. In the War of the Trench, it has never been done before in Arabia, how the Prophet's armies outsmarted his enemies without needing to outfight them. So the conquest of Mecca, it was more of a psychological operation, a psychological brilliance operation. So you had huge army, minimal bloodshed, and it was total surrender, absolute victory for the Prophet's armies. Sun Tzu would have said, that's how you do it. Number five is about justice, not empire. So Sun Tzu believed that war should restore order, not create chaos. War should restore order, not create chaos. And that's exactly how the Prophet approached it. The Prophet didn't fight to rule the world. The Prophet fought to protect people's rights, to stop oppression, and to allow people to worship freely. The Prophet's wars weren't about territory, they were about justice. Sun Tzu would respect that, because in the end, war isn't about victory. It's about what kind of peace you create afterward. Think about it. What's going to come afterwards? So reflecting on all of this, so what would Sun Tzu say about the Prophet Muhammad? I think Sun Tzu Master Sun would say, here is a man who understood war better than most generals, but more importantly, he understood when not to use it. The Prophet wasn't driven by ego. He didn't seek fame. He fought when he had to, and he forgave when he didn't have to. He showed that mercy and strength aren't opposites. They're allies. They have to be used together. And that's what makes him not just a successful leader, but as a transformative genius, a transformative one. Or to sum it up in one sentence, here is a commander who conquers not by force, but by principle, who sees war not as a hunger, but a burden, whose victory lies not only in the battlefield, but in the hearts of men. So what do we take from all of this? I just hope it got you thinking, and I would recommend you to check out The Warrior Prophet by Professor Joel Haywood, who's wrote a much more deeper analysis of the Prophet, his wars, and his way of war. Now, if you look at how the Prophet navigated warfare and understand why his example still matters, we can learn a lot from that. And here's a question for you. Who else from history would admire the Prophet's ethics in war? Send me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to learn about them as well. Thanks for listening. Remember to use the comment box and subscribe to my channel. Very important. We keep doing this. And if you want a outline of what we talked about today, let me know. I'll send one to you, or put it on my social media as well. Speak soon. Till next time.